Hi, my name is Ben Plessier and I am a fervent user of Wappler. Welcome to this tutorial, where I will create a new customer registration form. We left the last video with a checkout page containing a summary of the items that we have in the shopping cart. The next part is to allow new customers to register. This is, so that their details can be used to send the ordered items to their address. This is what the form will look like to normal users, including those with assistive technology. But there are other elements, called spam bots, that will want to misuse the form for dubious practices. For this reason, I have added 3 extra form input fields that will be hidden from normal users in an effort to catch spam bots in their tracks, and to stop the registration process. I have given the 3 inputs a name and a label that is familiar to a lot of similar forms all across the internet. However, these inputs are not required for our project. They can be safely used, what is commonly known as a honeypot. When I now use the automatic form filler tool to fill in the form, we notice that the company field is automatically populated. Keep this in mind when we try to catch the spam bot. The position input field is kept empty, while the title input contains a secret key. All of this will be explained as we move on. As is my habit, I first go to the server side of things. I find that first creating the server actions assists in developing the front end. The first item on my list is to add a password field to the customer's database table. I go to the database manager and select the customers table. Here I add the password field. Then save the change. The next item on my list is to add a secret key. This key will be used to populate the title form input. This is done in the Workflows tab. First, I create a folder called Security. This is where I will place all of the security actions. The first action is to produce our secret key. I drop a set session action in the secret key JSON file. I name it my key. The easiest way to create a meaningful key is to assign a universally unique identifier, or UUID. Make sure that the secret key is available on the front end. Save the JSON file and we are done here. The next item in the list is to add the hidden fields to the input. I go to the customer's upsert action and select the post input. Here I add the 3 form input fields, namely company, position, and title. I make the title a required field because the value needs to match the value of our secret key. Because the secret key was created in its own API, it needs to be made available here. This gets the name of my key. Now, you may have noticed that the password field is missing from the posted fields. This is because the password field was added to the database table as an afterthought. To rectify this, I go to the database insert step. In the database updater panel, I add the password field. The password field has now been added to the post variables. Don't forget to make this a required input. A word about the posted email value. An email address can sometimes be written with uppercase text. At other times this can be all in lowercase. To standardize the email address, I want to make sure that the lowercase version is entered into the database. This will overcome future problems. For this I add a set value step. The name I have chosen is email. The value is the posted email converted to lowercase. The next 2 steps involve adding conditions to trap spam bots. The first condition is to determine if the hidden position field has been populated. If the field has a length, then the field contains data and the process will end with an unauthorized error. If there is data in the position field, we need to stop the registration process. This is done by adding a response within the condition. The response gets a name and a response code. These are standard HTTP response codes that can be found on the Mozilla developer website. I will leave the link below. The next condition is to catch the spam bot when the posted title value is different to the value on the server. Here I select the posted title. Condition this to be not the same as the my key session value. I thought that I was clever here by dragging the response from the previous condition. As you can see, this failed miserably. Never mind. Just duplicate the response and drag that back into the first condition. The next step is to ensure that a duplicate email address is not entered into the database. This would mean that the same customer has registered twice. For this, I go to the Validator tab and choose Validate Data. This is added to the action steps after of the conditional regions. Inside the data validator, I add a validation, leave the name as is and add an expression. The expression is the set value of the lowercase posted email. In the validation properties panel, I add the form input name so that any error messages will be shown there. Then, I select validation rules, database. The rule needs to ensure that the data does not already exist in the database. Here, the relevant database table and column are selected. To top it off, I change the generic term value to email. Now for the password. In keeping with best practices, the password needs to be encrypted to mitigate its illegal use. There are various ways of doing this. The easiest way when using Wappler is to go to the cryptographic tab and choosing password hash. This is dragged into the actions tree under validate data. In the properties panel, I leave the name as is. For the password, I choose the password that has been posted. Lastly, I need to adjust the values inside the database insert. This is to reflect the changes that we have made above. Open the database updater and choose the value for the email field. Instead of the posted value, I now give it the value of the set value step. This ensures that the email will always be in lowercase. Second, comes the value of the password. This is changed from the posted value to the hashed value. While here, I may as well change the email value in the database update. There is no password field to update here. Changing the password will be done as a separate procedure that will be shown in a future video. I save the JSON file and let Wappler do its task of adding the extra packages. And we are done as far as the server-side actions are concerned. Now for the front end. The checkout page is where I will create a modal containing the registration form. But before I do that, let me add a component called notifies. To make this component available site-wide, I place it in the layout page. Save the layout page. Time to add a modal for the registration form. This is placed after the container. Change the modal title. and change the button texts. Give the modal an ID. And set the fade in and out mode. Remove the body text. And we are ready to insert the registration form inside the modal body. This is done by going to the Generators tab and selecting Form Generator. Inside the Form Generator dialog, I choose the Customer Upsert action. For the form type, I have gone for a vertical form. But the choice is yours to make. The changes that I make here can also be made once the form has been added. I find it more convenient to make the changes here. The first and last name labels undergo a slight modification. As this is an insert action where no ID is yet known, the ID input is removed. The Submit button is also removed. The button in the modal footer will be used instead. On with the last change, which is purely optional. I like the inputs to be logically arranged. Hence, I relocate several of the inputs. Hit the OK button and our form is ready for further modifications. I start by giving the form a recognizable ID. As you probably already know, when Wappler generates a form, the input fields all contain an ID prefixed with INP_. This is okay when only one form exists in the page. But when there are several forms in the page, there would be many form inputs with the same ID. This, of course, is not allowed. To fix this, in Code View select the prefix, and hold down the Control or Command key and the letter H. This exposes the Find and Replace text box. Enter the new prefix in the Replace field. In my case this is INS_. INS for insert. Hit the Replace All button to change all of the prefixes. Hide the Find and Replace text box. Now for the form input validations. First save the checkout page, so that the latest changes are recorded. Then go to the Workflows tab and select the Customer's Upsert API. Hit the chevron in the input box, which exposes the Input Properties panel. Here I select the page containing the form. And pick the form in the drop-down list. Then I hit the Export button, adding the validation rules to our form. Don't forget to save the Upsert file. Adding the required attribute in this manner does have a problem. Namely, the validation JavaScript and style rules are not automatically added to the project. That is, in Wappler version 6.3. Maybe in future versions, this may no longer be a problem. Please keep this in mind. To illustrate a workaround, I'll first add an extra panel. The extra panel is not a requirement. It is only to show you what happens in the background. To have the script and CSS added to the project, all I need to do is to add a required attribute to one of the inputs, in this case, the company form input. Once the attribute has been added, we see the addition of the script and CSS inside the main layout page. Back in the original, one panel layout. I remove the added attribute, it is no longer needed. As shown earlier on, the title form input has the secret key as its value. To obtain this value from the server, I need to add a server connect. This gets a recognizable ID. For the action, I choose Security and Secure Key. Now, I do not want the server connect to automatically load upon opening the page. The reason will become evident as I go along. I can now add the secret key to the title form input. In the Properties panel I scroll down to Dynamic Attributes and select Input. Value. For the value, I pick my key from the Server Connect data. Nearing the end, I select the Register button. Because this button resides outside of the form, this cannot be a normal submit button. Instead, I assign a mouse on click event. For this, I go to Dynamic Events, Mouse, click. For the action, I select Form, Submit. When the form has been submitted, the modal needs to hide, and a message shown to the user of what has happened. For this, I select the form and go down to Dynamic Events. Here I select Server Connect, and Success. For the action, I first hide the modal. Then choose to notify that the customer has successfully registered. I will be coming back here in the next video when I discuss customer login. This is so that the customer will automatically be logged in after successfully registering. There are other notifications that are available, which I have not shown here. These notifications include when an error has occurred, or when a user is unauthorized after having tripped the honeypot. I will leave this up to you. When the modal is hidden, either by a form submit, or a cancellation, the form has to be reset to remove any existing data. This is done by selecting the modal itself, and Dynamic Events. In the pop-up, choose Modal, Hide. For the action, the form is reset. When I deselect the modal, by selecting the main container, the modal disappears. This is of course, normal modal behavior. What is needed now is to show the modal when the new customer button has been clicked on. I select the button and scroll up to the action toggler. Here I set the action to modal. Because there is only one modal available at this moment, the correct modal appears in the text block. When the button has been clicked on, I want the title text input to contain the value of the secret key. For this, I scroll down to Dynamic Events, where I select the mouse on click event. For the action, I choose to load the secret key Server Connect. Let me now show you the effect this has in the browser. Clicking on the new customer button shows the modal complete with the value of the secret key in the title input. To see what is happening behind the screen, I open the DevTools panel. Here I select the title input, and see that it contains the secret key. When I refresh the page, the value of the title input is empty. This is exactly what a spam bot will see when it comes across this page. The field is required, hence it has to be populated. But with the wrong information. This is the real gotcha. When I again click on the new customer button, a new secret key appears. In other words, every time the new customer button is clicked on, it will produce a new secret key that needs to be matched on the server. In fact, this method can be used for any form in the project, thus reducing the number of spam bot interferences. The next and last step is to hide the hidden inputs from browser and assistive technology users. But before I do that, let me reveal the information that I have gathered on the topic. First, when form elements use input type hidden, assistive technology and spam bots can still interact with the element. Second, the visually hidden class in Bootstrap serves to hide elements visually, while ensuring they remain accessible to assistive technologies and spam bots. In other words, implementing either of these two is of no use to us. We do not want users with assistive technology to fall into the honeypot trap. For this reason, I have opted to go for this third option. The Bootstrap class, dnone, is primarily designed to hide elements from both web browsers and assistive technologies. However, spam bots can interact with elements that have a display none. This is the same option that is used to hide the likes of an off-canvas and modal. With this knowledge, I can now go ahead and hide the inputs. I will now add a class of dnone to the form group container. This is done by choosing the container, and selecting each of the devices shown under display. This is repeated for each of the 3 hidden form inputs. And that is it for this video. I hope that it has been of some use to you. The next video is devoted to the customer login. I hope to see you there.
Excuse me, may we see the end result before you leave?
Okay, Molly from Down Under. But let me first show you what I have done outside of this video. First, I removed the dNone class so that all of the inputs are shown. I have also added a couple of dynamic events that show when there is an error and when the honeypot has been triggered. The time for testing has come.